Good morning. Today we'll be reading The Raven, a poem by Edgar Allan Poe. This poem features a mysterious bird that speaks only one word: nevermore. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this and nothing more." So Edgar Allan Poe jumps right in here and begins to create an atmosphere that is so important in this poem. In the first two lines, we find out that it's late, it's a dreary night, and our speaker is reading some scary old books and feeling weak and weary, and begins to nod off, and finally hears a tapping, just a small noise, but suddenly he jolts awake, and he's a little bit nervous. He tries to calm himself down, telling himself that it's just some visitor who has dropped by unexpectedly. But just like in a horror movie, we know it won't be that easy. Ah, distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my book surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here for evermore. Just as we're wondering whom the visitor might be, we start to feel the suspense. Poe backs up and almost starts his poem over again, telling us a little bit about himself and his spooky atmosphere. It's not just dark and late and dreary, but it's December. And so here Poe is piling on the dark, late, cold, and bleak setting. The fire is going out. The last of the coals are the dying ember. Notice that tone word. And they're making very creepy, ghost-like shadows on the floor. The room almost feels haunted, and in a way it is. The next four lines we learn that there's a reason why our speaker is sitting up late. He's trying to distract himself with old books because he is grieving for a lost woman, someone named Lenore. Could this be his girlfriend or possibly his wife? She is among the angels now and has left him behind alone, and so he was hoping to end, to surcease of sorrow by reading his books. So the setting deals directly with the mood and the tone. It's midnight on a cold evening in December in the 1840s in a dark and shadowy bedroom. And the angels named Lenore, so we know that she is in heaven with the angels. So she has died before the poem even has begun. And the narrator has an undying devotion for her, and he misses her greatly. She could represent Poe's wife that died 2 years before this was published. Remember, she died of tuberculosis along with his foster mom and his real mom and his brother and his first girlfriend. Stanza 3. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now to still the beating of my heart I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This is it and nothing more." So the room seems creepy, the atmosphere is scary, and it's really getting to the speaker. In fact, he describes himself as having fantastic terrors. The rustling of the curtain seems to make him scared or sad. And have you ever felt this at night when you hear a noise and you start to play tricks on yourself and start to get even more scared as the night goes by? But he tries to calm himself down as his heart is beating faster, and he tells himself twice that it's just some visitor wanting to pay a visit to him. What fills the narrator's heart with terror in stanza 3? But a tapping noise disturbs him. What part of speech is the word tapping? Think about sift. Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating there no longer. Sir, said I, or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came a-rapping, and so faintly you came tapping, tapping at my chamber door, that I was scarce for sure I heard you. Here, I opened wide the door. Darkness there, nothing more. Eventually he gets a hold of himself. He calls out to the visitor, and he imagines that must be there, and apologizes for taking so long that he barely heard him because he was sleeping. But when he opens up the door, he sees nothing, just the black night. And Poe is really keying up the suspense now. Again, it's hard for us not to think of a horror movie where the nervous main character walks up to the door, slowly turns the knob, and finds nothing. That's always the sure sign that the surprise is coming when we least expect it. Deep into the darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dreamed to dream before, dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, Lenore. This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, Lenore. Merely this and nothing more. So he stands out the door, and he's scared, and he's doubting, and he's dreaming, and he's peering, and he's looking into the stillness. He says, Lenore? And he asks, and then something repeats the word Lenore. For our depressed and grief-stricken narrator, the whole world seems bleak and terrifying, and everything, even the darkness, reminds him of his lost love. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. Surely, said I, surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what threat is, and this mystery implore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind and nothing more. Finally he turns away and comes from the darkness. It's clear that he isn't comforted at all. In fact, he's feeling worse than ever, as it says, all my soul within me burning. And within his burning soul, he's going through some rough times here. Then he hears the tapping again, a little bit louder. Like anyone who is near the edge, he tries to get a grip, to come up with a rational explanation. He decides the sound is coming from the window, so he forces himself to look outside. He tells himself to calm down, let my heart be still a moment. In a final effort to make these things seem normal, he tells himself it's just the wind. So the narrator is a man who's grieving for his dead love. He longs to be reunited with her in heaven, but obsesses over whether he will see her again. He really just wants to be left alone. Stanza 7. Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obstinance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat and nothing more. So you can take some time to read what this stanza means. The bird comes in, he makes a reference to him as being stately, having wisdom, being some sort of aristocrat, like a lord or lady, somebody of importance. And he comes in and lands on a statue of Pallas, which is the ancient Greek goddess of Athena, who is known for the goddess of wisdom. So this is a major symbol that shows up. He could have landed on a lamp or his bedside, but he did not. He landed on the goddess of wisdom. So this might mean a lot more than just the literal sense. This ebony black bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling. So he He thinks it's funny. By the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore, though thy crest be shorn and shaven, though I said, art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore, tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. So at first he thinks it's a little bit funny. He's trying to distract himself um, and imagining that the serious decorum or the way that the raven is acting, um, that he's amused by this. But then he starts to throw out some flourishes and he makes an alliteration to Plutonium, who is a Greek god of Pluto, of the underground. And this adjective is meant to make us think about a dark and scary, hellish things, particularly the dark and dreary night. So this is two Greek gods that he has referenced at this time. So he's trying to kind of show off a little bit that he knows these um, mythical stories and gods. And so then he asks the raven, "What's your name?" Just as a joke, thinking he won't answer, but the raven responds with the word "Nevermore." So the raven flies into the room and lands above the door on a statue of Pallas, Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war. Why would you suppose this is significant? Why would he land on the goddess of wisdom? And what is the first question that the narrator asks the raven? What does the raven reply? Stanza 9. Much I marvelled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore, for we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore. So the speaker is now a little surprised to hear the bird talk. Um, he doesn't really know how Nevermore could be the answer to his question. He underlines this by pointing out that no one before him has ever had a bird or an animal named Nevermore sitting on a statue in his room. We're pretty sure this bird named Nevermore thing is a joke, but we admit that maybe it's not a laugh out funny type of joke. And he says that he's blessed with seeing a bird above his chamber door, so maybe he's feeling a little bit important here that the bird would come into his room. And so this is where we are going to end part 1, and then we will pick up here tomorrow. Hope you're enjoying The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe.